that way.
Okay. So welcome to our hangout. We're going to be interviewing Emerson Matsuuchi from Nazca Games. My name is Charles Baruch. During the course of this, we're going to do an unboxing if the cameras work. We're going to do an interview, and then we're going to do a little bit of the gameplay. So I want to introduce you to Emerson and get things started now.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Okay, Emerson, I'm going to go over and see if the other camera's behaving. If not, we'll switch over to the interview while we deal with technical difficulties.
Sure.
But, tell us a little bit about the game.
Okay. Vault Robot Battle Arena was a game inspired by those early 2000s shows like Robot Wars or BattleBots, where you had contestants make their own robots. They were all radio-controlled robots, and they would be put inside of an arena that had pits, some fire, and they would battle other robots until there was only one robot left functioning. So I really enjoyed those type of TV shows, and I also watched the movie The Real Steel, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed quite a bit. So I had the idea for the game, starting with that Robot Wars style sport, and just trying to envision what that sport would look like if you fast forward 50 years, 50, 60 years into the future. What would that sport look like with advanced robots and things like that if it became a very popular sport? So that's where Vault came from. The mechanisms for the game, would you like me to go into that, or should we wait for the gameplay portion?
Let's see if we're going to have a gameplay portion. We're having some interesting wonky issues, guys, so please do bear with us. So let's talk a little bit about, this is your own game company, correct?
Correct, yes. Nazca Games is a game company that I started back in 2012. Around June is when I decided to officially start the company. Our first game product was actually a small little card game called Tricks and Treats. So it was a light, very family-friendly card game that plays 2 to 4 players, and the claim to fame for that game is that each player, the story is that you're a bunch of kids, you're coming back from a Halloween trick-or-treating event, and the parents want to divvy out the candy evenly among the baskets, but as players of the game, you want to try to get as much of the candy in your basket as possible. So it's a game about bluffing and also about deduction too, in which if you're able to identify which person is cheating, you can knock them out of the game. So, but it's a very quick 10-minute game. And
I know you have kids. Was that kind of inspired by your kids deciding to do that?
In a way, yes. In a way, yes. I initially started, when I created the game company, I wanted to make games that were family-friendly, things that you can play with your kids. Right now, my kids are still pretty young. So my oldest is 5.5. My son is 5.5, and I have 2 daughters. My oldest daughter is 4, and my youngest is approaching 2 now. So they're still a little young for the games. I've tried Candyland. That ended up being disastrous though, because it's one of those games where if you play it exactly by the rules, you are at the mercy of the cards, and you can't throw the game so that your child can win once in a while. So my wife kept on winning, and that kind of discouraged my son.
I can understand that kind of frustration.
Yeah.
No, trying to get the sneak in here now so we can, my borrowed account, so we can actually get everything working.
Okay.
Almost. Let's try that again. Let's invite him in, because that's the camera that's going to be handling the demo.
Sure.
So that's not him. Hang on. Okay, and I do apologize, guys. We will try to cut in better video quality later, but this is what I can do with my camera phone on a rush. And, okay. Yeah. You wanna? Emerson, you want to talk just a little bit more while we try to get this set?
Sure. Okay. Are you going to use the psychedelic light effects again?
I don't think we need this time. Yeah. to mute you. Hang on a sec.
Yeah.
Okay, muting is done. Can you see Zeke on there correctly?
Okay, I see the box.
See the box?
See box. I see Zeke right box.
You now see the correct box.
Yes.
Yes, beautiful. Okay. I will turn this over to our director to actually get the shot right. We are back. And apologies for all the chaos, but this is low tech, high tech. Okay, so as we're setting up, we'll just talk a little bit more.
Sure.
The basic mechanism behind Vault is hidden moves. Is that a safe way to describe it?
Partially, it's action programming where your actions are hidden from the other players. So everyone is going to be planning their actions. So essentially you're programming your robot. But as people are doing that, it's all hidden behind their player screens. Once everyone has decided how they're going to program the robots, everyone will simultaneously reveal. And then the actions are taken according to the order of the dice. And I should also mention that the game uses dice, but only one dice is actually rolled. Everyone else is actually placing the dice, so you have complete control over your robot. So,
which is a nice different mechanism you don't see in a lot of games. That's kind of impressive.
Yeah, it is a little different. It is a little different. I haven't seen many games that use that mechanism. There are some programming games, one of which is Robo Rally, which I know is a very popular game. That uses
well, since you mentioned that, what kind of makes your game different than Robo Rally?
Oh, that's a really good question. One is in Robo Rally versus Vault. Robo Rally is more of a race game. So the objective in that game is to go around sort of like a factory floor, hitting checkpoints and trying to avoid obstacles and lasers and things like that. In Vault, it's more of a combat-driven game where you want to attack other players. You're vying for control points. So it's much more of a head-to-head game. In terms of playtime, Robo Rally it's a bit of a longer game, where I designed Vault to be a more shorter game. I guess as I've gotten older, I do appreciate shorter playtimes of games. So I tried to distill that. The boards are smaller. So in Robo Rally, you can have like a very large board, but at certain points in the game, you'll probably have your robots pretty spread apart. There's not going to be a whole lot of player interaction. It's just more each person's just trying to puzzle their way through the obstacle course with their action cards. With Vault, the arena itself is actually very small, so most likely your robots will get destroyed at some point in the game, but you immediately come back, and since the board is very small, you're right back into the action. So there's no player elimination. That's also another difference. Robo Rally, you have 3 lives. If you destroy your robot 3 times, you're actually out of the game. In this game, you can be destroyed any number of times, but you're always going to respawn at the end of each round, and so you're always going to be right back into the action. So
it sounds like it's a little more inclusive, a little friendlier in the way that it's approaching things.
Yeah, I think as long
while
as
we're taking, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, while we're still trying to overcome the technicals, I was going to ask if you want to talk a little bit about some of the other games you guys have, the stuff you're about to put out, the stuff you've already got out.
Oh, okay. One of the other games, I hope I'm not going to go too far off camera here, but one of the other games that Nazca Games has been working on, I got this mock-up from the manufacturer a few weeks ago. It's a game called Cypher Ops. So this was one of the games that we're working on, but what you see here is actually going to look quite a bit different. So I do have some interesting news about this game. For this game, Nazca Games will actually be partnering up with another publisher to put this out to market. And it's going to be in a bigger box, and it may include miniatures and upgraded maps and things like that. So that's something that we're really excited about. We're hoping that we can get it out before the end of the year, but because we're introducing some enhanced components, it may take a while, especially with plastic miniatures. Those tend to take longer to get the sculpts, to get the molds made, and so forth. But it's one that I'm really, really excited about.
Well, I'm very excited. It looks like we've got video feed.
Oh,
not the quality I was hoping for, but we got video feed. So excellent. I'm going to go over there and do the unbox. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what I'm going to find in the box?
Okay, sure. All right, so inside the box of Vault, you're going to find, I guess the most prominent thing is that you're going to have 4 robot miniatures in there. So I know that plastics have been having plastic miniature figures is kind of like the hot thing these days, especially with Kickstarter. Speaking of which, I should probably mention that Vault wasn't a Kickstarter game. It is a game funded through my company. Not that I have anything against Kickstarter. I think Kickstarter is wonderful. Just wanted to point that out. Also inside there, you're going to have several game boards. There's going to be 2 double-sided game boards inside. So you're also going to have 4-player boards as well as 4-player screens. So the game is a 2 to 4-player game. You're also going to find lots of dice in there as well. The dice is the primary way, so each player is going to have a red, white, and blue dice. And the dice is going to be the primary way where you're going to be able to program your robot's actions on your player board. Now, I know that when you see dice, most people's reaction is that you roll them, it's going to be random. But one interesting part about this game is that you actually don't roll your dice. You actually choose the facing of your dice. The dice, you place it on your player board that looks kind of like an Xbox controller, and that was intentional too, is that I'm not sure if I enjoy or if I like the term a programming game. I wanted this to feel more like you're controlling your robot with a remote control and you're battling it out. So I purposely made the player board look more like an Xbox or a Nintendo controller. And you place your dice on this controller, and depending on which spot that you put it on, let's say if you put it on the forward arrow, it's going to move your robot as many spaces as the pips that are showing on the dice. And then there's also weapons controls, which has 8 spots, so you can fire in all 8 directions. And the number that you place on there determines the strength of the shot as well. So the robots are equipped with weapons. So once everyone places out their dice, so right now we're looking at the 2 double-sided player boards. Yeah. And then underneath that, you're going to have your punch board, which has a whole bunch of tokens in there. So I think we lost the feed. But
I'm going to put it back right now. Hang on a second. We're going to come back over to the interview side. What we want to do now is we want to give a chance for the box to get fully unbuilt now.
Okay.
We've got all the pieces there.
Okay.
And, as soon as that's ready, we'll be able to actually start and play. So what we've got here is a robot battle game. You said one of the interesting differences is this respawn idea, this idea that you don't stay out of the game.
Right.
How do you score points then? How does the game mechanism work so that anybody can win anything if everyone's in all the time?
Oh yes, that's a great question. There are 2 primary ways of getting victory points. There is actually 1 dice that's rolled, and that's actually the only dice that's rolled. It's the control point dice. Whatever number it lands on is going to determine which spot on the board. So you saw some of the blue spots that are on the board that are numbered from 1 to 6. So let's say if you roll the control point dice, it lands on the number 3. The number 3 spot on the board is what's going to be worth a victory point if you can have your robot there at the end of the round. So it's a bit of a king of the hill type of mechanic where you want your robot to be on that spot at the end. So you have to plan what your opponents are going to do so that you can counteract their moves and then end up being on that spot. If you're on that spot at the end of the round, you'll earn 1 victory point. Now, the other way, which some people might say is the more fun way of getting the victory points, is each time you destroy your opponents, you also get a victory point. There are 2 primary ways of destroying your opponents. One is that each robot has 3 hit points. If you deal a point of damage to them, and that's the final point of damage, if you deal the killing blow, you also get a victory point as well. And one of my favorite ways of getting victory points is that there are numerous pits on each of the boards. If you are able to push your opponent into a pit, then you score a victory point by destroying them. So if you fall into a pit, you're instantly destroyed. And then at the end of the round, you come right back. So I have seen games where, actually this was just a couple weeks ago too, is that I saw a game where one person had a lead. He had 4 points, and a couple of the other players had some points, but my friend had 0 points at that point. And it just takes 5 points to win the game. So, and he had one spectacular round. He brought me over and says, "Hey, come look at this." And when the dice resolved, he ended up pushing he ended up blasting one person, pushing two people into the pits to put himself onto the control point. So in that one round, he was able to earn 3 victory points, all in one round. So those are the two primary ways of getting your victory points: destroying your opponents, being on the control point.
Okay. We think we've finally got things mostly set up. Let me get the other camera started up.
Sure.
And basically, talk us through how the first move setup works while we do this.
Okay, sure. So in order to set up, each player is going to take one of the player boards as well as a player screen. You probably want to pick the color of the robot, and you'll take the matching screen. Place the player board in front of you. It's always best to have it at least one edge of the player board be parallel to one edge of the game board. And the reason for that is that all the movement and all the firing is actually relative to your player board. So it's actually the orientation of the robot does not have any bearing on the gameplay at all. So it's just more for aesthetics and thematic reasons you want to turn your robots. But it's really just the orientation of the player board that's really important. So then at the start, each player is going to place their robot anywhere along the edge of the board. So, and each player is going to also take 3 dice, the red, white, and blue dice, which I see you have right there as well. Yep, that's perfect. Okay, and then at the start, you'll see that one of the blue dice is actually numbered rather than have the usual pips. So that dice is rolled at the start, and whatever number that lands on is going to be the first control point. And then the game is ready to start. So the setup is very quick. So everyone will take their player board, which looks like this, and then place it in front of their player screen, and then place it in front of their player board. And then from that point, everyone is going to simultaneously program their robots using the 3 different color dice. Everyone should have a red, white, and blue dice. So as they place it out onto the board, there's 2 sides of the player board. The blue side of the player board controls robots' movement. So you can see there's 4 buttons on that side. If you place one of the dice on one of the buttons, yep, there you go. So on the right, for you, it's the right side. So the blue section, which has 4 buttons.
So which die go where?
So you can actually place any of the 3 dice you can put on your movement. So the movement is the blue section. So that side is actually your weapons. The weapons you can fire in all 8 directions. So yep. So in this case, you are programming your robot to move forward 1 space because that's the value of the pip that you have there. And the only restriction for movement is that you can only put up to 2 dice on movement. But you can put as many dice on your weapons control as you'd like. And where you place it on the weapon is the direction in which you're going to be firing. So yeah, that's a great example. Okay, so in this particular case, I'm assuming you're the red robot. The red robot is going to move forward, so away from the camera 1 space, because the dice resolve in red, white, and blue order. It seems a little patriotic. Then next, the white dice is going to resolve, and in this case, you have a 4 on the white dice, so you're going to move 4 spaces in that direction. Correct. Okay. And then the blue dice it looks like it's firing in the same direction that you're moving, so that is going to just fire into the wall and miss. But had there been, let's say if you were using the dice exactly, yeah, pointing in a different direction, if you happen to hit your opponent, you'll deal 1 point of damage to them. Now, if you take a look at the player screen, on the inside of the screen, it gives some interesting information in there. Yeah, there you go. Okay, yeah, that's great. That side of the board, the first part of the board, that shows you the order in which the actions are taken on each round. So step 1 is that everyone's going to place their 3 dice on their player board. Step 2 is that we resolve the dice, starting with, it goes in the red, white, and blue order, and starting with the lowest numbered dice, and we resolve, if there was ever a tie, it resolves the movement first and then the firing. Then step 3 is we check to see at the end of the round, once everyone's dice is resolved, if anyone's on the control point, they would earn 1 victory point. So that's the way to get victory points. And then finally, step 4, if anyone was destroyed, then they get to respawn at the end of the round. And that's it. If you If you move over to the middle of the player screen, some keen viewers are probably wondering, well, what does the value of the dice represent? Especially since when you put a dice there, you're going to fire it indefinitely. So the dice number doesn't represent the range, but what it does represent is the strength of the shot. So as you can see here, you can see the numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. When you use a 2 or a 3, if you're able to hit your opponents, it forces your opponents to move their weapons 45 degrees either clockwise or counterclockwise. So if you can anticipate when your opponents are going to fire at you, you can then force them to turn their weapons so that I've seen some interesting situations where one person is anticipating another player is going to shoot at them. They preemptively shoot them with a 2 or a 3. That forces them to turn their weapons, and they end up hitting another opponent. So occasionally you have these interesting chain reactions. If you use a 4 or a 5, that actually alters all of your opponent's dice. So they are forced to move all of their dice, including their movement dice, 90 degrees, either clockwise or counterclockwise. And this is interesting that you can shoot your opponent to force them to turn, and sometimes they'll inevitably fall into a pit that way. Then finally we have the 6. If you use a 6 to fire, you can actually push the robot one space. So it's a dead center power shot, and I've seen quite a few times when players would use a 6, that power shot, to push an opponent into a pit, and by doing so you get a victory point. So that's how your weapon systems work. And then finally, if you move to all the way to the right side of the player screen, it tells you, it's just a reminder to show you that the dice resolution order is always in the red, then white, then blue order. So in terms of gameplay, everyone's going to be resolving their red dice first, then their white dice, then their blue dice. And it always starts with the lowest number dice. So let's say if I had a red 3 on my movement controls, and Chuck, let's say that you had a red 1 on your movement control, you would move before I would move. And sometimes you can use that to your advantage, but it's always something to think about. If you know that your opponent is going to be going for the control spot, you can always anticipate what order the movements are going to be in, and you're always trying to outguess what your opponents are going to do.
Okay, very good. Because of what's going on here, what we'll do is we'll actually do the gameplay separately, and we'll cut it back in. Sure. Because I think what we're doing is breaking the cameraman's arm right now. But I think we gave a good overview of the game. I think we gave people a feel for it. We will add back in a section.
Sure.
Hold on one moment.
Sure. Another thing that I can also mention is that what I've just described is all just a basic game.
Right. What we didn't do is there's a lot of pop-out pieces.
Yes.
I'm going to flip back over to that video, and we'll see if we can't get that piece of it. Just bear with me one moment.
Sure.
One moment.
Yeah, so there's the game comes with a lot of.
I'm going to switch you over to Zeke, and we'll see if we can't see on the borrowed account. There you go. So there's lots of pieces we popped out here. Can you tell us what these things do? I know with the victory points are the ones with the wreaths.
Yep.
And the damage are the little ones with the red stars, with the white centers.
Yep.
What about the rest?
Yeah, those are the damage tokens. What you see, the square tiles that you see, though, that's actually part of the advanced game. And there's 16 of these, what I call module tiles, and basically they act as upgrades for your robots. So the one that we're looking at, the one that's closest to the camera, those are like the magnetic field ones. Those will allow you, as you move, to actually pull other robots along with you. So it acts as a magnetic field. The other one that has like the horseshoe icon on it, that's a tractor beam. So you can actually, instead of firing to deal damage, you can actually pull your opponents closer to you. And ideally, if you can pull them over a pit, they would fall into the pit, you would destroy them, and you would earn a victory point. A couple of the other modules that you can see, there's the grenade launcher, which is also one of my favorites. The grenade launcher will allow you to toss a grenade using your weapons controls, and it acts as sort of like an area of effect damage weapon, where you select a spot. Anyone that's within one space of that spot is going to take a point of damage, and it may push people away from the point of explosion. So there's other ones. You have like the buzzsaw, which will allow you to deal damage when you push people. So in the game, you can push other robots. You know, you can try to push them into pits or push them off the control point. But each time that you do, you deal 1 point of damage with them with the buzzsaw. We have things like, you know, the crossfire blaster, which will allow you to fire in all 4 directions each time that you fire. The one that you see that has sort of like the radioactive symbol, that's the explosive core upgrade. Each time that you get destroyed with weapons, you actually blow up, and then anyone that's adjacent to you is going to take 2 points of damage. And if you're able to blow someone else up with your explosion, you also get a point of damage. One of my favorite weapons in there, which you can't quite see, it's probably buried in there, is it's the teleporter gun. So instead of dealing damage to your opponents, you will swap places with your opponents. So that gets to be, it's very fun, it's a very chaotic thing. And these are advanced modules. There's several different ways that you can use them. For people who are just getting started with the game, I would recommend just picking like 1 or 2 of these modules, placing them next to the game board, and those will be active for all the players. So it's a good way to introduce the different modules. As players get more comfortable with some of the chaos that these modules provide, you can then draft them. So each person can draft, you know, the modules that they like, and then those modules will only apply to their robots. So it's kind of like their own special powers that they have during the game. And then if they'd like to go even farther than that, one variant that I have up as on the official addendum on Board Game Geek, you can use the center spot. Whoever is on that spot at the end of the round will randomly draw one. So you can get random powers throughout the game. So there's interesting ways, different ways of playing it. Let's see, what you see over there off to the right, those are some of the accompanying tokens that are needed for the advanced modules. Like, for instance, you see like the reflector tokens there, you see the portal tokens. You'll also see that there's a whole bunch of mine tokens that comes with the game. One of the power-ups is proximity mines. And what that power-up allows you to do is each time that you move your robot, you leave mines behind. And if your opponents step on your mines, then they blow up and you get victory points that way. So that's also one module that I enjoy quite a bit, especially when you have a board full of mines that exactly. So what you see there are those mine tokens of different colors, as well as some grenade tokens. You have the magnetic field tokens, tractor beam tokens, and so forth. One for each player. So there's quite a few components. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Unlike a lot of these other games, you're saying we're in a situation where by buying the base set, we actually get an expandable game. We get a game that we can play at a basic level. If we have more advanced players, we have things we can introduce. If we've been playing it a lot, we have other ways to freshen the game up.
Oh, absolutely, yes. That's exactly correct. So I've had people who enjoy the base game, but they've one particular review that I enjoy his reviews quite a bit. He wrote me an email and he says after he's played with those advanced modules, he says he will never ever play without them. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so we'll wait for the suddenly vanished designer.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
There we go. Those things happen. So in summary, it's a really neat game. Very glad you introduced it to us. We'll meet with you again. We'll do a narration and actually cut over a whole set of the games so that people can actually see the gameplay. And we'll put this up raw, and then we'll put that up again. And
Okay.
I'll give people a chance to see it because it's a lot of fun. What places can they buy it?
Right now, it was released to retail on March 3rd, so it should be available at your friendly local game store. It's also available online as well. If you have a favorite online retailer, it should be available there. Let's see, it's available through Amazon as well. So it's in wide distribution at the moment. So if your friendly local game store doesn't carry it, be sure to let them know that you're looking for a copy.
Yep, I believe it was on Cool Stuff Inc. It's been on Miniature Mark, a couple of other places online.
Yeah.
Really nice game. I suggest you guys buy it. I bought mine, and I'm having a lot of fun. Okay, to finish up, we hope you enjoyed this. We'll try to be a little smoother next time. But there's other people we'd like to interview with other opportunities for you guys to see, folks. There's more stuff Emerson's got to show us, and hopefully you'll come along for the ride. So this is Chuck Baruch. I'm here from hdwpbooks.com, where we're doing some interesting things in written fiction. And we've had the opportunity to speak today with Emerson from Nazca Games, and I hope you guys have enjoyed all that. And Emerson, just last plug, do you want to mention any of the places you're going to be next?
Oh, yes. If anyone's going to be attending Origins Game Fair or Gen Con, Nazca Games will have a booth at both of those events, so I encourage you guys to stop on by. At Origins, our booth is going to be number 333, and at Gen Con, I'll post up on our Facebook and our Twitter feed what our booth number is going to be for that event. That's going to be in August, and Origins Game Fair it's actually just around the corner. It's going to be from June 11th to the 14th. So I hope to see people there. Chuck, thank you very much for having me.
Social media, tell them how to find you on Twitter, on Facebook, and Google+.
Thank you for the hint. Yes, you can follow Nazca Games at Nazca Games on Twitter, and our Facebook page is facebook.com/Nazca Games. And we also have a website, nazcagames.com, for more information of our games and our upcoming projects as well.
And thanks a lot. Despite all the little excitement here, we had a lot of fun with you, Emerson.
The pleasure was mine. Thank you very much for putting this together.
Always a pleasure. We'll see you in Gaming Group.
Yeah, hope to see you on the next gaming meetup.